So Tracy, another year, another NASCIO.
Yeah.
What's going on in Indiana?
Oh, Indiana, we got a few things going on. You know, we're really kind of at the point where we need to look internal, and we're going to focus on really kind of getting some of our foundational operations in a much better place. We've come a long way over the last 4 years, but really as we look at, what's the future of IT and IoT look like for how we're going to deliver our services to our agencies, having to adjust to all the new licensing and subscription and operational models that the vendors and industry is moving to. We've really kind of taken an in-depth perspective and look at how we operate, how we do our jobs, how we manage our infrastructure, and some of those solutions in place. So we got a number of projects that are going on right now, really kind of putting a new service management framework in place, operational activities, identity. I can't talk about identity enough. I mean, it's a big piece of what we do, and we are really in a good place right now to get a good comprehensive footprint and perspective of all the identities that engage with the state of Indiana operations. That is something that we're going to continue investing in and putting a lot of time and effort in and preparing for identity to move into digital identity and what the overall future looks like. The other big thing that is always a hot item that is near and dear to my heart is the continued engagement and collaboration with our local governments in that footprint as we continue to round out the state local cybersecurity grant program.
That's great. So I want to dive into some of the back office stuff you were talking
Sure.
about. The bit about negotiating with vendors on contracts and subscriptions, it might sound not so fun or interesting to some, but it's really essential to the role of the CIO in 2024. How are you strategically going into those conversations, planning so that you're maximizing those dollars and the spread of those technologies?
I mean, you're right. It's not sexy, it's not fun, but it's a mandatory necessary evil. And the way the contracts and the license agreements are being structured these days are really kind of taxing and causing challenges with figuring out how do we as a state government protect ourselves and protect our assets, but also get access to the tools and technologies that we all need in order to keep moving our state forward and being innovative and pushing the abilities and services we provide to our consumers available. For us, it's got to be good collaboration with our legal team, our procurement teams, and first and foremost, it really has to be foundational in the relationships with those partners and them understanding there are some things that we just really can't control. Some of the different requirements and terms and conditions are out of our hands. That doesn't mean we're not trying to work with you, but we also need you and your legal teams to understand as you're going from state to state, there are different activities that just can't be adjusted. We want to find a way to a solution. It's in our best interest to find a win-win for us all. So we just be coming to those tables with good open minds and open opportunities, and let's look for ways to collaborate and partner and really help us both get to a success.
So if you could give some advice to vendors who are coming to the table, beyond just having an open mind, how can they make that process, that situation easier on you?
Well, the reality of the situation, when you look at state contracts, the majority of our boilerplate terms and conditions are published and posted live. I mean, they can look at those in advance of those discussions and give us some ideas of where they're going to have issues, where they may want to have red lines. A lot of times we put that in our RFPs early on, and vendors don't take advantage of the opportunity to respond and put that information in there up front. The earlier you can get that in front of us and realize that we have multiple agencies that have to agree to those terms, the better off we can all be in actually getting that across the finish line.
Yeah. Let's go to the identity and access management piece. One of the things that I think is most interesting to me about identity and access management is just all the parts of the enterprise that it touches, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a cyber thing, it's not just a digital services thing, it's not just a data thing. There's a bunch of pieces that it's all involved with. How is that continuing to evolve for you, and where are you putting your attention?
The key with identity, and this is where we have a lot of work to do, not just in Indiana, I think across most states, is the realization that the identity, like you said, it's not just a technology, it's not a cyber, it's not truly just identification of a person. It's the entire intersection and bringing all that together across the footprint of the entire program and the operation. And so it's governance. Governance is a huge piece to helping make that successful and actually helping get control and understanding so that people in agencies and the different applications that they're looking to pursue take into account what that identity is of that citizen, where they're going to use it, how you can make it as easy for them as possible, how are you going to manage and maintain that, and then ultimately at some point I'm sure we're all going to have to deal with If necessary, how do I delete and clean that up to protect that information as we continue to make sure that we're supporting the data privacy initiatives that are sweeping across the nation? I mean, that's the big piece, is the reality that it's not an IT issue, it's not a motor vehicles issue, it's a statewide issue. All of our agencies are dealing with our citizens and its constituents across the state, and that identity of who they are is really crucial to how we do our business.
And when you're having those conversations with agencies about something like identity, I mean, how are you explaining the importance of what you're doing to them in that context, right? Because it's probably pretty easy to just be like, oh, that's an IT thing, I don't have to worry about it.
Well, you have to first understand their business. I mean, that's key. As you're talking to any agency, you got to understand their intersection with the constituents and the citizens across the state in order for them to make that connection to why that identity matters to them, and also then why that identity matters to us. That's the symbiotic relationship between IT and mission that we have to put a lot more time in investing in that education and that partnership relationship with the agency leadership and such. And you don't just want to have that with agency IT leadership, you need to have that with agency executive leadership, because they're focused on mission, and all you want to do is really help support and enable them to be successful with their services for their constituents, but they have to also understand the impact and the potential risk that does bleed back into the IT side that we can work together on.
So going back to the local government collaboration piece, as we've talked about, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Yeah. Indiana, you know, small-ish state, but very different across the landscape. Where are you in terms of collaboration on cyber grants, and where are you in terms of general collaboration with local government?
Indiana, we've actually come a long, long way, and we're in a really good place. So far, we started off in advance of the local cybersecurity grant funding in trying to build a relationship and build some trust. So we took it upon ourselves to go out and do a 92 county tour and visit every county in the state to introduce ourselves, let them know who we are, let them know what we're working on, and really understand what some of their challenges were at their local levels. That did a monstrous opportunity for us to build some relationship and rapport, as we then followed that up with some regional meetings, and then lo and behold, the federal cybersecurity grant funding became available, which really just rounded out, now how do we actually put some of this in place to help move everybody forward? So we're going to continue, and that's, I mean, just like state government, local government, there's constant changes in leadership, there's constant changes in elected officials. This is something that we're going to have to continue doing, that outreach and that marketing, to keep that relationship strong and moving forward, and then keep identifying programs and solutions that we can look at from a state perspective, leveraging our contracts, leveraging our relationship with vendors, leveraging our knowledge and expertise to help make life a little bit easier and better for them. And that's something we've also been aggressive with, is working with our vendors to make sure if you're going to contract with the state of Indiana, you're going to contract with the entire state of Indiana. So how do you make sure your terms and conditions and your pricing models support our ability to expand and support and enable our local governments?
What's the reception been like when you've worked with local government leaders on this? I mean, are they skeptical? Are they excited? How do they feel?
Local government leaders are all of the above. They're skeptical, they're excited, they're paranoid, but they're interested. And so we've had some wins and some successes thus far with cybersecurity training initiatives. We got some endpoint monitoring activities that we're rolling out as well. But as they started to see more and more folks adopting it on board, and some of the skeptics start to kind of turn and open their minds a bit more, and they're starting to see more of that push from the legislative body as well, the opportunity is starting to become much more of a positive situation. There's always going to be those local governments that just don't want us touching what they're doing. They're afraid of Big Brother. They're afraid of us controlling and regulating them. That's not what we're looking to do, and that's not our role. We have no desire to police and manage and maintain footprints across the entire scope of local governments in Indiana. But we do have the ability, for the size, the engagement, the relationships with vendors and such, to bring good products to the table, bring good resources that they can take advantage of, and also just put them in a position to protect their communities in a much stronger fashion. So that comes with educating the local IT directors, but also significantly educating those local elected officials, working with our community association partners, the associations of Indiana counties and other municipalities like that. They're also getting on board and helping spread that message and showing that we're really focused on outcomes and enablement, and that's been a huge success for us.
And then kind of the last question, we get to do this, you know, twice a year at a NASCIO conference. When we talk again in the fall in New Orleans, other than your favorite places on Bourbon Street, what do you want to talk about, and what do you want to tell me that you've gotten done in that time?
Really, at that point, I think we should have some real good progress in really getting a good AI footprint started and launched and actually in practice. One of our biggest pieces that we're going to be working on is around our public-facing website and all the volumes of content that we make available publicly. It's a nice innocent area to start on that we already have public information that's out there, but how do we make it more accessible, searchable, findable, and really help individuals and citizens find one way into Indiana and get directly to the services they need. So we're going to be looking to enable artificial intelligence in that capacity, and I really hope that by then we'll be rolled out and at least in a pilot phase to show some value and output from us really kind of taking it by the horns and going strong at AI.